Welcome to Pay-Per-View Church. Welcome everybody that's in the room. Welcome to Kitchener and those gathered in Chatham. We're so glad that you're joining us for the third week, the last week of this series we're calling Christmas Clashes. And my name is Pete and I'm a pastor here, and I'm going to be talking for about the next 33 minutes if things go well. This series, we've been looking at these conflicts that emerge around Christmas, around the birth of Jesus. The announcement happens, Jesus is going to be born, and then everything's not all perfect and rosy. There's some conflicts that emerge. And so this morning, we're going to look at this conflict that emerges between Jesus and King Herod. Now, you're here or you're watching online or at one of the other campuses. I'm imagining you know something about Jesus. You maybe at least know his name, but you may not know a lot about King Herod. And so let me give you a little bit of a picture of King Herod, okay? King Herod reigns over this place called Judea, where the Jewish people live, but he's only half Jewish. In fact, if you try to research his background, there's so much debate around exactly what should we call him, but just for simplicity's sake, let's call him half Jewish. And the Jewish people aren't all that thrilled that they have a king who is half Jewish. And his allegiances seem to be very divided. At best, he's maybe half and half, like for the Jewish people over which he is king, and for also the other half over the Roman Empire, who have installed him in this position as king over Judea. And because of this kind of dual allegiance, he does some nice things for the Jewish people. He builds things for them. He builds up their temple once again. But he also does other things that kind of reveal his allegiance to Rome. And so he does things like he built a fortress. He built a fortress in the city of Jerusalem that was higher than the temple for the Jewish people. So the Jewish people, all of their worship revolves around the temple system. So all of their worship, all of their ideas of God are centralized in this place, the temple. And it was beautiful and glorious. But whenever they went to the temple, they would have been able to also see the higher structure of the Roman army. This Roman fortress that would remind them, for as much and as great as our God is, there's this other empire here. There's this other kingdom here, and it's bigger, it's mightier, it's greater. It kind of casts a shadow upon us. And whenever we have our religious festivals, Herod would amplify the amount of soldiers that were in the temple area, in the city of Jerusalem. So as you came to the highest moments of the year to worship your God, you would constantly be bumping into and noticing over there and over there the Roman soldiers who were there to keep you in line. Herod also installed, at one point near the end of his reign, he installed an eagle, which was a symbol of Roman dominion. And he installed this eagle over one of the central gates that would lead into the city and then into the temple, which was just a huge slap in the face to the Jewish people. That as you come to worship your God, you have to walk through this gate and under this eagle that once again was a reminder. Sure, you can have your religion, you can have your God, you can have your temple, but don't forget who's really in charge here. A group of people were so upset about this eagle that they tore it down. And Herod had those people rounded up and burned at the stake. Herod held the Jewish people at bay. It was kind of like he had his foot on them the whole time that he reigned over them. And he lived this life of luxury. He built these amazing palaces. One of them, he built many of them, but one of them was called the Herodium. And this is kind of what it looks like today. But this was like, in the ancient world, the most luxurious thing you could imagine. This huge estate. First of all, he had the mountain built so that he could build the palace on it. And then within this, there's like several layers that go deep. There's a theater that would seat over 600 people so that he could have his own little show. It's like, let's have a show. Let's bring everybody to my fortress so that we can have a play for me. He would have bathhouses here. There would be extravagant living quarters with the best food imported and the best wines imported for him and all of his rich friends to enjoy. This was just an amazing place of luxury that he enjoyed, while the people that he reigned over were being taxed, some would say 80, 90% of their wealth taken away. And he lived like this. He was also very paranoid. He was kind of like always watching his throne. Like, he reigned for 32 years, and to reign for 32 years, you gotta have a little bit of paranoia, because everybody wants to try to take you down when you're the king. And he was able to do it for 32 years. So he had a bit of paranoia, so much so that at one point he had his wife killed, and then he had her 2 sons killed. And there's countless stories of him killing those in his inner court because he was paranoid. Oh, maybe they're plotting to get me. He also built fortresses. He was paranoid about a threat coming from the east. He was paranoid that maybe one day an army would march upon them from the east. And so he had this fortress built. This is called Masada, which is kind of on the eastern border of the territory that he ruled. And this is where I want us to kind of jump into the story that Matthew begins to tell. Remembering this Herod he's half Jewish. He was living this life of luxury with his foot on the neck of the Jewish people, and he's paranoid of a threat coming from the east, so much so that he builds this fortress. And with that, I want to begin to read Matthew's account. We're only going to read 3 verses today. That's all I need to talk for my 33 minutes. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, that's what we just learned about, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem. Right away, Matthew is tipping us off to, hey, you guys all know Herod. You know how he's so paranoid. You probably heard him talk about the threat coming from the east. He was envisioning an army, not like a whole entourage of magi coming. Matthew's like, one day, Herod's worst nightmare happens. These magi from the east come to Jerusalem. And what do they say? What are these travelers from the east saying? They were asking, where's the one who's been born king of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him. Can you imagine when Herod, who we just learned about, heard this rumbling, this rumor start to go around his city? He saw the huge amount of people coming, like this whole caravan of magi coming. I wonder what they're all about. Go find out what they're all about. Yes, sir. A messenger goes out. What are you guys here for? Where's the one who's been born the king of the Jews? We're here to worship him. Messenger goes back to Herod. Herod? I'm sure if he could write, he would have just handed him a note and then run away. They're like, Herod, they're asking where the one who's born king of the Jews is. I don't think they mean you. Ugh. And they would like to worship him. Ugh. Can you imagine if that happened in your job? Wherever you work, you're a grade 5 teacher. Someone comes into the classroom, I'm looking for the new grade 5 teacher. You're like, that's me. No, not you, someone else. What? A little bit of anxiety. I'm looking for the leader of this company. That's me. No, not you, the new leader. Oh, what? Imagine that happened in your life. Someone walked into your house today. I'm looking for the owner of this house. That's me. No, not you, the new owner. What? There's a new owner? And this is preying upon his worst fear. For his whole life, he's watching his throne. And one day this caravan comes. We're looking for the new king of the Jews. I'm the king of no, not you, the real one. And what happens to Herod? When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed. And all Jerusalem with him. He was disturbed. This word, you could put stronger language to it. You could say he was terrified. Matthew uses the same Greek word when he describes when the disciples are out on the boat and they see Jesus walking on the water coming towards them and they are terrified. Matthew uses the same word. So it's not like he was just a little disturbed. He was closer to terrified, to physically upset, deeply troubled at this news. And not only him, but all of Jerusalem with him. This is the clash that we're going to look at this morning. That when Jesus shows up, kings who are nothing like God get a little disturbed, a little terrified, a little troubled, and everyone who is aligned with those kings and rulers and powers also get very disturbed at this news. Oh, you are a king? Well, there's a new king come to knock you off your throne. Oh, I don't like that news. Oh, you're aligned with the current king and he treats you nice and you like the way the system works because the system works for you. Oh, well, there's a new king coming and he's got a whole new system that actually is going to turn the whole thing upside down. Oh, well, we don't like that. I don't want something to change and move me from the top to the bottom. That's what happens at Christmas. Jesus he's just a little baby and he's already beginning to disturb the rich and powerful. And this is good news. This is good news. It should be good news for us. It should be good news, hopefully, for like at least 5 of us here this morning. Like this is good news. I call it the good news of the terror of Christmas. The good news that those who disturb others will become disturbed. The good news that the terrorizers are going to become terrified. The good news that the troublers are going to become troubled. This is the good news of the terror of Christmas. Some of you know this terror because you live on the bottom, whatever that means. There are people over you who don't treat you well. And you live with this low level, I feel disturbed all the time. I go to work and I have this constant anxiety. I go to my neighborhood, I go to my apartment building and I have to deal with my landlord and I have this constant troubled feeling. I don't even want to pick up the phone because I don't want, like, is it the bill collectors again? Like you live with this constant disturbed feeling. And this story is good news to you. That those who are disturbing you and terrifying you and troubling you will themselves become disturbed and terrified and troubled. This is the good news of Christmas. And I think that for the Jewish people, holding on to this story, holding on to this, that like they had this hope that one day those who were above them would themselves become disturbed and terrified. There was imagine a small group of them, not all of them, because most of them were trying to just make their way in the empire. Let's figure out how we can do this thing. Okay, we're Jewish, we'll try to do that part, but we live in a Roman Empire, so let's try to get along with that system. And they were trying to make it work, but there was a small remnant of them who believed that one day a new king would come and he would turn everything upside down. I think that this hope, if you imagine this little remnant of people, this hope that existed among them would sound like these words I'm about to read from Isaiah chapter 9. This is what their hope likely sounded like. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of the deep darkness, a light has dawned. You have enlarged the nation and increased their joy. They rejoice before you as people rejoice at the harvest, as warriors rejoice when dividing the plunder. They look forward to this day. They're we feel like we walk in this darkness, we live in this darkness, but one day a day will come when our nation will be enlarged, where we will rejoice at this abundant harvest. For as in the day of Midian's defeat, you have shattered the yoke that burdens them, the bar across their shoulders, the rod of their oppressor. Every warrior's boot used in battle and every garment rolled in blood will be destined for burning, will be fuel for the fire. One day those who oppress us with their boots and their garments and their armor, one day our God will come and throw it all into the fire. For to us a child is born. To us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders. You get this picture of whoever the government is on their shoulders, they're like the foundation of the culture. And the government that they lived under, that government was on Herod's shoulders, and so everything looked and kind of smelled and felt like Herod. But one day a king will come, a son will be born. And the government will be placed upon his shoulders, and he will become the new foundation for this new culture, this new way, this new kingdom that will emerge. Well, what will that look like if we build on his foundation? What will that look like? Well, we're gonna call him things like Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Oh, imagine we could build on somebody like that. Imagine what that would be like. This is the hope of the remnant living in Jerusalem under King Herod. Of the greatness of his government and peace, there will be no end. He will reign on David's throne and over his kingdom, establishing and upholding it with justice and righteousness from that time on and forever. The zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this. Imagine holding this. Imagine hearing this voice as a child, hearing this verse as a child, this passage. And you learn that this is our hope. We live in this world, but one day a king will come and everything's gonna change. And you live with that. You live with that for years, for decades of your life. And then one day a caravan comes from the east and begins to ask, where's the real king? We heard he was born. We're here to worship him. Imagine how that might spark up these words within you once again. And your feeling of I just live trying to get by every day starts to go away. And this new kind of peace comes. Our God is going to be faithful to his promises. Matthew does something interesting in his telling of the birth of Jesus and kind of what happens after it. And what he tries to do for us is signal that Jesus is going to be a new type of Moses. We call it typology is the word, but it's kind of the idea that there are figures in the Old Testament who are like a prefiguration. They're a foreshadowing of Jesus. And so they will pale in comparison to who Jesus will be. And so Moses leads his people into freedom, and it's amazing. And it's an amazing story what Moses does, but Jesus will be a new kind of Moses who leads us into an even greater freedom. And Matthew gives us little clues to help us pick this up. First of all, Herod, when he finds out about this, he has this local genocide happen, which is very similar to what happens of killing all of the infants that are under 2 years old in Bethlehem, where Jesus is born, which is very similar to what happens in Egypt when Moses was born, that the Pharaoh announces, kill all the baby boys, trying to wipe out the threat. And then Jesus and his family flee to Egypt, which means that then they come out of Egypt into Israel, which is what Moses does. He leads his people out of Egypt into Israel. And Jesus even has a dad named Joseph who has dreams. And it is his dreams that signal to him that it is safe for his family to leave Egypt and go into Israel, connecting to his namesake, Joseph, who had many dreams, and in many ways was one of the fathers of the great nation of Israel. Matthew's trying to connect for us. Jesus will be the new, greater Moses. And for people who held the hope of Isaiah chapter 9, this great promise of a king that was to come, Matthew is trying to point them to this Jesus. He's the one that you've been waiting for. He's the fulfillment of Isaiah chapter 9. This is what I call the good news of the terror of Christmas. That those walking in darkness, whose life feels like a trudge through darkness, for them, a light has come. For those living in darkness, they are going to begin to experience that the new day is dawning, because God is breaking into history in the person of Jesus. And Jesus will become this new king with this new kingdom, and this new kingdom is for the lowly. And it's a kingdom of love. And he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. And this kingdom that he is beginning will have no end. And when the terrorizers hear about this, they will become terrified. You may have to wait a little while, But the good news is that Herods don't last forever. Herods die. And so while you live under the Herods of your life, just learn a little trick to whisper. Whisper the good news of the Magi's. You're not the king. You're not the real king. I know that you have power over me right now, but you're not really in charge here. One day the king will come. One day light will break into this darkness and you will become terrified. It's the good news of the terror of Christmas. This is the clash between Herod and Jesus. We want to be on Team Jesus, right? If this clash is happening, Team Jesus, please, yes, Team Jesus. There's a great saying about prophets and about preachers that every sermon should come and comfort the disturbed, but it should also disturb the comfortable. And so far this morning, I've been trying to comfort the disturbed, which means it's time to disturb the comfortable, if you're not already, maybe a little. Because because we do all have a little Herod inside of us. Like, I want to be on Team Jesus. Okay, great. What do you do when King Jesus comes and he wants you to step off of your throne? He wants you to surrender your kingdom, because we all have a kingdom. We all have a life. We all have a life that is like our kingdom, with plans and bank accounts and mortgages, and we all have it. We all have a setup and a vision for the future of where we're gonna go. We all have this kingdom. What happens when you, like Herod, hear, oh no, you're not actually in charge. Oh, no, there's a new king and he would like to take the throne. He would like control of your bank account. He would like control of your plans. He would like control of your schedule. Team Jesus, still Team Jesus all the way? Or does a little Herod kind of start to bubble up? You know what Herod feels like? You can feel the little Herod inside of you. He loves control. He loves control. This is what Herod does in the story. After verse 3, and he gets disturbed and terrified, what does he do? He begins grasping for control. He wants to, okay, this thing has made my city go crazy, this news. Okay, what should I do? Let me get the religious leaders together. He gets the religious leaders together. He has to figure out, where is this king gonna be born? He gets that information from them. Okay, where? Bethlehem. Okay, I need more information. When? Then he secretly, Matthew tells us, he secretly calls the Magi in. Why secretly? Because he doesn't want to affirm their message. He just wants information, because with information, he can control the narrative. Okay, I know Bethlehem. Magi, when did you see the star? Because he's trying to figure out, when was he born? Okay, now I know where and I know when. And now he tries to co-opt the mission of the Magi. The Magi are going to worship Jesus, and Herod tries to give them an order. He's like, once you find the new king, come back and let me know, because I want to worship too. Sure you do. He tries to give orders to the Magi, and the Magi go and find Jesus, and they don't listen to Herod, and they go back to their home. And when Herod realizes they're not listening, he's like, I tried to control this thing. What does he do? Then he orders a genocide. Kill all of the babies, all the baby boys 2 and under in the city of Bethlehem. He reaches for this control. Everything has gotten out of control. I need to get my control back. This is what the little Herod inside of us feels like. What do you do when Jesus shows up and he starts, excuse me, I'm the king. What do you do? You've got something in your life that you know shouldn't be there. You're like, this is this thing I'm doing. This is the thing that I perpetually do. There's a thing in my life, it's not right. And I feel that it's not right. And I feel Jesus telling me, hey, that thing, it's not right. Well, we should get rid of that thing. But you're like, let's just keep it. Could we keep it there? Let's keep it there. Jesus is like, if you really let me be the king of your life, then you would take this thing way more seriously. And we could get rid of this thing together, and you're like, I don't know. What do you do? What do you do when you feel that like there's something wrong in your life? What do you do? What do you do when you feel this calling? When King Jesus comes and says, this season of your life is over now. I'm calling you to step into a new season. You know, Team Jesus, I will say goodbye to that, walk into the new thing. You're like, I want to hold on to the old thing. I want to be a part of this. Well, what happens when King Jesus shows up in your life? What happens to you right now? Some of you watching right now, like you watch or you come every week and you come because you like it here and the coffee's good and the people are friendly. But when we start to amplify this whole Jesus really is God, he really is king part, you're like, nah, that's not the part I come for. I come for the TED Talk part, not the Jesus is king part. And right now you feel disturbed. You feel a little uncomfortable. Can we get back to practical wisdom for daily living? What do you do? That feeling that you have is the tiny Herod popping up in you. And the choice is to either continue to wrestle, continue to strive for control, or you can just surrender. You can surrender. I thought about this week. I thought, it's kind of easy if you're on the bottom to surrender to King Jesus. In this sense, that if things aren't going well for you under the current king, well, then news of a new king is welcome news. Hey, okay, life sucks right now. There's gonna be a new king. Great, I'll opt into the new king because the old king sucked. What's really difficult is when things are going really well for you under the old king, and you hear that there's a new king coming. Oh, well, will things be better there? I don't know. Things are really good here. I don't know if I want to opt into the new thing. And so I asked myself the question, how then is it that Herods surrender? Most of us in the room, most of us watching, most of us are closer to things going well for us than things not going so well for us. And so when things are going so well, like how do you surrender? How do you get to that place? How do Herods, and this story, how could it have happened that a guy like Herod would have heard this news and welcomed it? How does that happen? What I love about Jesus is how it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen through fear. It doesn't happen through just overt power. I am going to knock you off your throne. Instead, Jesus comes and he wants to woo the Herods. He wants to woo us, the powerful, the wealthy. He wants to woo us into his kingdom. It's why he comes as a baby. The most unthreatening form. He comes as a baby. It's why he comes as a teacher to open our minds so that we would see the truth. He comes as a healer to open our eyes so that we would see the beauty of him as king and the beauty of his kingdom of love and sacrifice. He comes to reveal all these things and then to woo us into his kingdom. I know things are going good for you in the old kingdom, but look at my kingdom. It's even better. It's even more beautiful. And then he invites us to surrender. His goal is not to terrify us, but if we choose not to surrender, we will be terrified. I think that's what Matthew's telling us, the way he tells this story. You can surrender and rejoice in the news of King Jesus, or you can fight him. And as you fight him, you will feel a constant disturbance in your system, in your soul. My favorite football player growing up, which makes no sense, is named Deion Sanders. Makes no sense because I'm a quarterback and he was a cornerback and we are arch enemies. He's also very fast and I'm very slow. But nevertheless, I loved Deion Sanders growing up. I even read his book when I was like 12 years old. It was called Money, Sex, and Power. I don't know what a 12-year-old's doing reading that book. But I love Deion Sanders. From what I know, he's a follower of Jesus, and that doesn't have anything to do with this story, but I kind of followed him, and he became a coach. He went from a player to becoming a coach, and he recently moved from a small school into a bigger school. He became the head coach of Colorado State. And in making this move, when he was transitioning to this new team, he gives a speech, and it was on YouTube 2 weeks ago. It's got like 4 million views. He gives a speech to his new team. And it was just so awesome to watch, because he comes in and he begins to address the team in this like stern way. He begins to tell them, some of you have become comfortable here. You become comfortable with losing. You become complacent with losing. And then he says, I'm coming. And things are about to change. And he keeps going after this refrain of, I'm coming. I'm coming. Things are going to change here. We're going to go from a losing culture to a winning culture because I'm coming. Some of you aren't going to be here in the spring because I'm coming. I'm bringing players from my old school into this new school, and some of you are going to be wished farewell because I'm coming. I'm going to change the way you eat. I'm coming. I'm going to change the way that you train because I'm coming. I'm coming. There was something about like watching him say this and this inevitability of the change that he was bringing coming to this school that I thought, I feel like that's Jesus. Jesus, like, you can fight or you can surrender, but I'm coming. You can hate me or you can adore me, but I'm coming. You can ignore me or you can worship me, but I'm coming. We're gonna sing a song in just a minute, and I wanna invite the band to come out. And the song talks about adoring Jesus, which is the opposite response of Herod. And it also has the line in it, we give you all the glory. It's a song, you probably heard pieces of it before, but it's like a new rendition. And I know when you're older, you're like, where are the old songs? Well, there's little bits of the old song in this. But we're gonna get to the bridge of this song, and there is the line, we give you all the glory. And it gets repeated over and over and over. And I thought that as a way for us together as a body, everybody online, everybody in Chatham, everybody in Kitchener, everybody in Westside, to together proclaim Team Jesus. To together proclaim our surrender, that if we just sang that as loud as we could, we give you, we together, we are no longer individuals, we are united to a new body. We give you, Jesus, all the glory. We step off of our thrones and hand it to you. We surrender. We give you, Jesus, all the glory. I invite you to stay seated for the first part of the song. And when we get to the bridge, to stand and sing, we give you all the glory. Jesus, prepare us to sing. Sometimes we get into songs and we start singing all the words and we haven't thought about what we're about to sing. We are about to sing our full surrender and adoration of you. We're about to do something crazy to the world. If the rest of the world could see what we're about to do, we're about to proclaim, we don't want control. We surrender to you, Jesus. Jesus, we think about the places in our life that aren't right, that we are holding on to, and we release them this morning. We think about the places where we are looking for people to look at us and to praise us, and instead we proclaim, we give you all the glory. Jesus, we love you, we adore you. In your name we pray. Amen.